everybody, welcome back to Crochet by Landry. In this video today we are going to be making our Christmas tree, and we'll be adding our buttons onto our tree to hang off our ornaments. So grab your Caron Simply Soft Yarn, your pattern from yarnspirations.com. I'll put the link in the description box down below so you can print it out and follow along with me. And once you've got all your supplies, let's get started adding a Christmas tree. So we're going to start making the tree, and what we're going to do is the tree is broken up into 3 sections. So we're going to start with section 1 if you're following along in your pattern. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by making our slip knot, and we're going to chain 2 to begin. So 1 and 2, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put 1 single crochet in that second chain from the hook. Okay, and that's row 1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to row 2. We're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then what you're going to do is you're going to put 2 single crochets in that chain, in that stitch you just made. So there's 1, and there's 2. Now you're left with 2 single crochets. Now for row 3, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and now what you're going to do is you're going to put 2 single crochets in each single crochet. So you're going to put 2 in the first, and then 2 in the second, and you're going to go from 2 single crochets to an increase, and you should be left with 4. Now what you're going to do is you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. So row 4, you're going to put 2 single crochets in the first stitch, and then what you're going to do is put 1 in the next one, and then 1 in the next one after that. And then you're going to put 2 in the last one for row 4. And that's our row 4 completed. Now what you're going to do is you're just going to repeat row 4, and you're only going to increase in the first stitch and then increase in the last stitch. And you're going to keep repeating row 4 until you've reached 34 stitches in one row. Once you've reached that 34 stitches, I will meet up with you and we will move on together. Okay, once you've reached 34 stitches all the way across, what you're going to do is you're going to trim your end. You're going to fasten off by chaining 1. Now you can either leave that tail or sew it in later. I'll sew it in later. And now what we're going to do is we're going to join with our green yarn again to the piece that we have. But what we're going to do is, looking at the right side, you're going to count 7 stitches. So we're going to work on section 2. And we're going to count 7 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you're going to slip stitch into the 8th stitch. You're just going to slip stitch into that and then into that stitch. And then what you're going to do is chain 1, turn your work, and then what you're going to do is you're going to single crochet in that same stitch, right where you slip stitched. And now you're just going to single crochet in each of the next 19 stitches across. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Just like that. Okay, and then now what you're going to do is you're going to turn your work and leave the rest of the stitches unworked. And for row 2, you're going to chain 1. And then you're going to, after that, 2 single crochets in the first. So 1 and 2. And then we're just going to repeat what we did for the last piece. Single crochet all the way across, and once you get all the way across, I'll meet you before we complete the last stitch. All right, I got 2 stitches left. So what you want to do is put 2 single crochets in that last stitch of this row. Okay? So what we did is we just repeated what we did in this section. So 2 in the first, 2 in the last, and then 1 in each stitch across. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to repeat row 2 until you've reached 54 stitches across. Once you've reached 54 stitches, I will meet back with you and we will do section 3 together. Okay, I just finished section 2 and this is what it should start looking like. So to move on, we're going to do section 3. So to move on to next, what we're going to do is chain 1 and fasten off like we did with the other one. And then we're going to rejoin our yarn. So what we're going to do is we're going to count inward 7 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. And then in the 8th stitch, you're going to join with a slip stitch. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to chain 1 and put a single crochet in that same spot where you joined, just to get your row going. And now what you're going to do is you're going to put 1 single crochet in each of the next 39 stitches. So you should have a total of 40 stitches going across. Once you've gone across and finished your last stitch, remember you do 39, 40 in total. Once you've got 40 stitches, I will meet up with you and we'll move on to row 2 together. Okay, I'm just about to finish the first row and I wanted to mention that what I did was I actually counted the number of stitches I needed and put a stitch marker where I needed to stop. So that way I know I needed to stop here and not keep going and have too many stitches. So where the stitch marker is where I need to stop, and that is where my 40th stitch will be. Now remember, you're going to want 40 stitches across. That way you don't have too many or too little. Now for row 2, what you're going to do is chain 1, and you're basically going to be doing what we've been doing this entire time. It's only an increase on the outside stitches on the first one and your last one. So what you're going to do is you're going to do 2 single crochets in this stitch, in the first one, and then single crochet all the way across. Once you get to the last one, put 2 in that last stitch, and then chain 1 and keep going back and forth until you've reached a row count of 74 stitches in once across. Once you've got 74 stitches, I will meet up with you and we will finish off our tree together. And there we have it. We finished our tree for our calendar blanket. So now what you're going to do is make sure you leave a tail long enough for sewing. If you didn't, just attach one. And then you're going to grab your blanket base grab your base of your blanket, and you're going to place your tree approximately 2.5 inches from the top of where your border is. So just, if you want, you can measure just to make sure you're on point. But you want to make sure you leave enough room at the bottom for your 24 pockets for your ornaments when we get to that point. So what you want to do now is sew your tree onto the base of your blanket. And once you're done that, I will catch up with you and we will move on and attach some buttons together. So I've started sewing on the tree. What I did is I just kind of lightly pinned it in place so it would stay down while I was sewing it, and I'll just take the pins out as I go. What I'm doing to sew it down is I'm trying not to go through all the way through the blanket. I'm only picking up some of the stitches from on top of the blanket. So that's how I'm sewing it on. You can sew on your tree however you feel comfortable. It's totally up to you. It's your calendar blanket. And then when you go to sew on your buttons, now make sure that your buttons, you have 24 of them because we're going to need one for every day of December leading up to Christmas Eve. And I'm just going to use some of these little buttons that I have here. And I'm going to place them all around the tree, 24 of them, and I'm just going to stitch them in place with either a needle and thread, or if your buttonhole is big enough, you can use your yarn needle to stitch them on as well. Again, totally up to you what you feel comfortable with. And once we get to the buttons, I'll show you how I'm going to sew them on. But keep sewing on your tree and I'll catch up with you when you're done. All right, and there we have it, everybody. Tree is sewn on. Buttons are also sewn on. And like I said, you can sew them with a needle and thread, or you can use your yarn needle if your buttonholes are big enough for your yarn needle to go through. And the next part will be at the beginning of April, so stay tuned for that, but stay tuned for next week. And there we have it, everybody. We added our cute little Christmas tree to our calendar blanket for this year. So everybody stay tuned at the beginning of April for the next installment of our calendar blanket. And don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you next week for more St. Patrick's Day fun.